welcome to the MMA Girl Podcast with your host, Jess. This is my second episode of my podcast. I'm very happy to be here. I hope the few of you that did listen and watch my first episode enjoyed what you saw and heard. Obviously getting into the swing of things, so I'm getting used to it. Changing the camera angle, changing the way I record, the way I speak, getting more confidence with my speech and everything. So I hope you guys are patient. I hope you guys are ready to take on this journey with me, because I'm fully into this. So, episode 2, I was going to start off saying that this weekend I have a very good excuse to put on my fighting nose glasses that I got from Amazon. They're not official. I think they must sell real fighting nose glasses on their website, but I got these a few months ago because I saw them on Amazon. They were, I think, $6 on Amazon.com. And I'm very excited for this weekend because obviously the UFC are going to Seattle with their main event, Song Yudong versus Henry Cejudo, Triple C. And obviously John Silver will be in attendance, will be fighting on Saturday night. So I'm really excited to see him fight again. I hope they haven't put him up against a can. We'll talk about that later. Some of the things I want to talk about, as I usually structure my podcast this way, I'm going to go in with the first few bits of news and things I've been hearing on social media for the last few days. And then we'll move on to what I thought of last week's UFC fight night, Jared Cannonier versus Rodrigues. So first of all, I saw, I think it was Daniel Cormier and Chael talking about their concerns for Alex Pereira, because apparently he may have flown back now, but he was still in Australia a few days ago. And apparently having a good time. I mean, I don't think that's really a concern for me as a fan. But apparently they think that he's not taking his camp seriously for his fight against Undercard, which is in approximately two and a bit weeks. So obviously they're a bit concerned that he's not in full camp mode. As some fighters, obviously, they go in with 8 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks of intensive training. And Alex is not seeming to take this fight as seriously as other camps that he's done. I personally think that, Alex Pereira knows what he's doing. He looks like he's doing things well. A few fans were saying that it's a bad sign that he was on the cover of the UFC EA Sports game, that he was at one of Drake's concerts and that Drake shook his hand. 2 signs that possibly his potential against Ankalaev is very little. I think Alex has his ducks in order. He knows what he's doing. If he wanted to stay in Australia for a bit longer, then so be it. I don't think there's a problem with that. So I don't think we should be that concerned. Because apparently for his match against his second match against Yuri Provodka, he was in Australia, I think, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, just for the fight, and didn't prevent him from getting that high kick in the second round. So I think we shouldn't be as worried as some people are saying. Okay. Obviously, Alex, we're all fans of him. We really want him to do well. Don't worry. I think we shouldn't worry. Obviously, the big announcements that have been made by Dana White 2 days ago were my preoccupation of the week. Here in France, as with the UFC UK fans, we got the news when we woke up in the morning, and we did not know. We did not see Dana White's live, Instagram live, so that was a bit disappointing for us. But Poirier is now vacating his title, so he's vacating the featherweight belt in order to move up to lightweight. I know a lot of people are sobbing for Max Holloway, the poor thing. Ilya coming up to lightweight is probably Max Holloway's nightmare, seeing as he didn't manage in 3 fights to beat Volkanovski, and he was just knocked out by Ilya Poirier himself, so he must be very annoyed that he's moving up. I can honestly say I wasn't expecting him to move up yet. I thought that Ilya was going to move up when he had his second fight against Max, or another fight against Volkanovski. Obviously, with the way Dana was talking about it, you could tell Dana was not very happy, or at least just wasn't. It wasn't his most ideal circumstances, but he said Ilya has found that he's done enough for the weight in order to move up to lightweight. The question is, why hasn't he been able to do both? That's, the question that is raised. Volkanovski, when he was featherweight champion, moved up to lightweight to have his match last year against Makhachev. That did not prevent him from moving up to lightweight for a fight. So why can't Ilya try and capitalize on two divisions, because we know full well that he's dominating the featherweight division, and we also know that he could possibly dominate the lightweight division. So why would he want to not dominate both divisions at the same time and become two-division simultaneous champion? I don't really understand that. We'll get on to the subject of simultaneous two-division champions, because that's the subject I wanted to approach this week, because I'll spoil it a little bit because I'm not going to talk about that straight away, but I really feel like the whole double champ status is a very blurred lines situation in MMA. There's a difference, guys, between having a double champ who is simultaneously champion in two divisions, and double champ who has been a champion in one division and then been a champion in another, not at the same time, i.e. John Jones, light heavyweight, i.e. Ilia Topuria potentially getting his lightweight championship belt, being former UFC featherweight champion. He would have not been simultaneous double champ. And I think that's a real difference. There's a real huge difference, reigning over two divisions at once. There's just a huge difference. So anyway, we'll get back to that later. I wanted to address certain rumors, blah, 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 and also cover the matches that have been announced also, because obviously I spoke to you about Volkanovski and Diego Lopez for the featherweight title in Miami. But on the end of this card, you have Paddy Pimblett coming up against the one and only Michael Chandler. As I spoke about this last week, I was saying that Chandler did tweet about this potential matchup. He said this fight would never happen. He was interested in it. And I watched Chandler's vlog from yesterday, or the day before yesterday. And he said, listen, Hunter called me and I flew out the next day to Vegas. And he presented this possibility, this potential fight. And even though he'd already sort of thought about it and he wasn't really up for it, he said that, Hunter explained it to him, Hunter sort of got him into the idea, and he was okay with it. So he signed the contract. He's now already starting to take the mick out of Paddy Pimblett. I don't know if you've seen on his Instagram or in his TikTok videos, he's been putting on wigs that look like Paddy's hair. So the semantics have begun. That's what we love with MMA, isn't it? In this matchup, I think really this is a real good challenge for Paddy Pimblett, because as Michael Chandler said, I'm no Bobby Green, I'm no Tony Ferguson. This is going to be a test. This is a fight that's going to test Paddy Pimblett to see whether he is worthy of competition like Michael Chandler and get him going up the ranks in the lightweight division. So this is a real test for him. So I'm not going to say it's going to be a walk in the park for Michael either, but Paddy won't have it as easy as Bobby Green or Tony Ferguson. That goes without saying, of course. Next up, Dana announced Bilal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena were having a fight in Montreal in May, which means that UFC London has had a makeover, because officially the main event is now Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady, because Jack Della Maddalena was supposed to headline UFC London with Leon Edwards. Now it's going to be Sean Brady and Leon in a fight, which is great. Different opponent, same task, as Leon would say, but not the same thing exactly. So we'll see how it's going to go. I'm excited. What do you guys think of the announcements he's made? He also made an announcement of Shevchenko versus Manuel Fierro. I wasn't very surprised with that one. I was expecting it even, so I'm excited to see that fight. Shevchenko is just another breed of fighter.
So, in other news regarding Ilia Topuria's move up to lightweight, to the 155-pound division, I just saw a video coming from Ilia's manager, because obviously the Makhachev camp are saying they're up for the fight, but he needs to prove himself in the lightweight division. I kind of agree with that. I mean, you can't just move up, in my opinion anyways, you can't just move up and then say, I want the champion because I need to have a belt. You just had to vacate your belt. Now you're going to have at least 1 or 2 fights at lightweight before they say, okay, you're legitimate. You can go up and have a fight against Makhachev. Like, I think that's logic. But anyway, Ilia Topuria's manager said, I don't think he needs another fight to prove himself. He wiped the floor with everyone at featherweight. Now he's coming up to lightweight. He'll do the same. So might as well have a fight for the belt. Obviously, Makhachev's camp have responded saying absolutely not. And I think, honestly, Dana White, seeing as he was a little bit upset with the move up, I think he's going to say the same thing with Arman. You know, you missed your match against Makhachev. You're going to have another fight before you get another title shot. I think he'll say to Ilya, listen, you want to move up? That does not mean that you're going to have a fight straight away against Makhachev. That's just not how this works. And I completely agree. In other news, otherwise, speaking of which, I just saw, so this is an edited version of this podcast because I've already found some things out in the last 20 minutes, that Diego Lopez spoke out about moving up to different weight divisions. And he said that now the UFC so they no longer allow people to move up to another weight class or move down and keep their belts in their previous weight class, which means we'll no longer have what we call the double champ status, as I was going to talk to you about later on in this podcast. You will no longer be able to see one person with two belts on their shoulders. That will no longer exist because Dana White and the UFC have decided that if you want to reign over another division, you have to vacate your belt and move up at that point. So that kind of explains and answers my question from earlier. Why couldn't Ilya just move up and keep his belt? Because I think he's fully capable of reigning over two divisions if he wins against Makhachev. But unfortunately, that no longer will exist. And I kind of, it's kind of sad because there's, the double champ status, two belts on the shoulder at the same time. The Amanda Nunes moment, you name it. It was just amazing. Conor McGregor with his two belts. It's just a sign of pure power and ability. And unfortunately, they no longer want to do that. So it's a bit sad, but I kind of understand the meaning behind it. I get what Dana's coming from. I get why the UFC have put a stop to that. But it's a sad thing because maybe Ilya would have imagined, as Ilya was very much a fan of Conor McGregor when he was growing up. Both him and his brother have the same tattoo. We can see there's a lot of mimicking in his behavior vis-a-vis Conor McGregor. So it's kind of sad to say that we won't be able to see Ilya with two belts on his shoulders unless he just takes a photo of him with two belts. It's just no longer possible for him to have the double champ status. So, as I said to you guys earlier on in my video, in my podcast, for those listening, I'm going to break down my thoughts on last week's fight card, Jared Cannonier versus Robocop Rodrigues, which was an amazing fight card. As I said, the Apex wasn't a snooze fest. I predicted it well because I was saying in my last podcast, even though it's at the Apex, it doesn't mean they're going to be bad. The fights are not going to be necessarily snooze fests because sometimes, as we saw 2 weeks ago, there can be fight nights that are in stadiums or in arenas and have only decisions, or in the main cards, only decisions, or even numbered cards like UFC 312 where there were a lot of decisions. So, and the main event was a decision. But as I predicted, this Apex card wasn't a snooze fest. As I think, if I noted correctly, there was 3 KOs on the main card. So I'm going to go and do my breakdown of the main card because obviously, as I told you guys last week, in France, we only get to bet on the main card. And if there are any undercard fights that I want to talk about, I would talk about them. But I think I'm just going to go with the main card. So starting off with Vieira versus Petroski, which is obviously finished in a decision for Petroski. Congratulations to him. I thought Petroski looked in great shape. He's always in great shape, but he looked in great shape Saturday night. He looked sharp. He looked quick on his feet. Honestly, he had a really good takedown defense. Seeing as between the two of them, Vieira was the better man on the floor normally. He's a BJJ black belt. Petroski is not. But he had a great takedown defense. And even when Vieira tried to get some takedowns, Petroski was able to switch it up on him and take him down, which is a really impressive thing to see. Love the hair as well, Petroski. Love the blonde. He was good at getting out of tough spots, as I said. And it was a really impressive first and second round from him. I think Vieira then realized in the third round that he had one round to get the finish or get the win. So he stepped on the gas in the last round, which unfortunately was too late. And Petroski got some really good jabs in there throughout the whole fight. I really enjoyed the match and I didn't expect it. I really didn't. Last round from Petroski, he also landed some great jabs. I felt like he had a really nice full speed finish to the last round, and he had a last minute takedown as well. So that was great to see. So well-deserved decision win for Petrosky by unanimous decision. Right. So next up, I had predicted that Bonfim was going to win his fight against Sadikov, but unfortunately, the Ov curse is not yet relinquished in this fight, because he won. Sadikov won by doctor stoppage, obviously, which I think was quite disappointing because I feel like Bonfim started his round really well. He had good pressure, intense start. He didn't let the jabs go through. He had a nice defense of his jabs and stuff. I think it was a shame that the head kick that he received from Sadikov was just, too close to the eye and then impaired his vision. He was no longer seeing out of the right eye. So obviously, as you know, Adam Michael Bisping, you cannot fight with one eye. Sorry. So he was doing some good jabs, Bonfim, but once he got caught in the face, it was too late. Sadikov had his chances. So from Sadikov's perspective, he might not have started the fight as dominant as Bonfim, but he got some nice jabs in there, got some nice high kicks. Sadikov looked a bit disappointed to win by doctor stoppage. I think many fighters would be disappointed in that because they would have wanted a good finish to finish up their fight. Even if it finishes in the first round, this was a doctor stoppage. He would have wanted it to go another way, but he got the win, and a win's a win. Next up, we had Shabazin versus Budka, which finished also in the first round. Shabazin won by first round KO, sorry. And in the first minute of the fight, Shabazin had some great high kicks going in there. He looked stiffer than Budka, less movement. Budka did start of his fight quite intense. He was coming in hot. I saw him, really trying to get in there, trying to keep the energy up, keep the pressure up on the Shabazin. And he had good combinations, good speed on the feet. Unfortunately, as Justin Gaethje explained when he took his KO from Max Holloway, when you're least expecting to be hit, that's when the jab hits you the hardest. So I think, unfortunately for Budka, the jab that threw him off, he landed on the floor, and then it was just over for him. So it was great for Shabazin because Shabazin was looking to be more patient. When Budka was going forward too much because he was really trying to put pressure on, he was lowering his guard. So obviously Shabazin took advantage of his lowered guard and the fact that he was trying too hard to change positions, which unfortunately made Shabazin have a nice opportunity to wobble him, which he did. He hurt him really badly. So Shabazin, well done to you. Next up, the co-main event, Qatar versus Zalal. This finished in Zalal winning by decision, as you guys know. I don't know about you guys, but I just feel like Zalal, he had a lot more to prove Saturday night than he did prove, unfortunately. I felt like, I don't know how to describe this. He obviously did enough to win the fight in the first 2 rounds. So obviously he put enough jabs, high kicks, etc. in to get the first and second round of the scorecards. But once he knew he was winning in the 3rd round, I just feel like he was just bouncing around trying to waste time until the last bell rang. I didn't like the fight at all. I feel like Zalal was a little bit too jumpy. I didn't like the way he was fighting, honestly. Qatar, he was just put off with all the movement from Zalal. He was really put off. He had the middle of the ring. He had the ring control, but he couldn't get a strike in. The distancing was just too much for him. He was unsettled by Zalal's movements and found it hard to gauge the distance. So I kind of understand why Qatar wasn't able to get any jabs in there until the end. Maybe too scared to get a takedown as well in case he got caught. But Zalal, he had some great jabs, good knee kicks at the start of the fight. But as I said, too much movement. And once he knew he was winning the fight in the 3rd round, he let the time go by moving around a lot. He reminded me of Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland, where Izzy was unexpectedly for us jumping around trying to avoid Sean Strickland's pressure. And I felt like that was what Zalal was doing. Whereas in this match, Qatar was putting a little bit less pressure because he wasn't able to gauge the distances to have a chance to get some jabs in. So that's what was unfortunate for me. I think Zalal should have proved himself a bit more than that. I heard him go on the Jackson podcast saying, I've got to fight against Qatar soon. You guys are going to see my abilities, etc. I would have preferred him to do it differently. I really didn't like how he won this fight, but we'll see. In his next few fights, I think he needs to have a better opponent, honestly. Qatar, he's lost a lot of his fights recently. We've not seen him in the win column for a long time. So I think we're going to need to see Zalal fight someone a little bit better, higher ranked, and then we'll see what he's worth. So let's go on to the main event of the evening, Jared Cannonier versus Gregory Rodrigues. I love this fight because obviously the storyline is amazing. The comeback kid, as I call this match. I loved it because obviously going into this fight, everyone was saying, have you seen RoboCop? Have you seen how big he is for a middleweight? This is insane. You know, he's much taller. He had a much longer reach. He was big. He had bigger muscles. He was looking amazing, RoboCop. And obviously almost 10 years difference. You know, he's 32. Jared Cannonier is almost 42. He's 41 currently. And people were just obviously saying Jared is going to go and be slaughtered. I saw some people saying, did the UFC want Jared to die? And in my head, I was like, for me personally, if you listened or watched my last podcast, I predicted that Rodrigues would win. So I was wrong. But you shouldn't count out the older guys. They're veterans. They know what they're doing. They've got more experience. And I think the veteran side to Jared, even though Gregory's had a lot of fights in his career already, Jared, he didn't start off the fight very well. As you saw, he took a lot of damage in the start of the fight. Between the two of them, Jared was the better striker, but unexpectedly, RoboCop decided to stay a little bit more on the feet. I think he was testing those takedowns in the start, and he saw that Jared was countering the takedowns very well, even sometimes turning him over and taking down Gregory as a result of any takedowns that he tried Gregory. So I think Jared was just a bit too clever for Gregory. So Gregory was like, I'm going to stay on the feet. I'm taller. I've got longer arms. I'm going to be able to get my strikes in and probably knock him out, which is probably what he wanted to do. And he did a lot of damage to his face in the end. But despite his insane physique, the nice body shots, the head kicks, everything in the start of the fight, great. But as Jared's team said to him before the third round, he's not the same guy. He is not the same fighter as the first and second round. So Gregory unfortunately needs to work maybe on his cardio, maybe on his cardio control, breathing control. Maybe he shouldn't go into a fight so intensively for him to then burn out in the third and fourth. The third round was a complete turnaround for Jared Cannonier. He was cooked at the first and second round. He almost got knocked out. He almost got choked out and didn't let RoboCop take him down for too long. And then he was relentless until the very end. He only needed 21 seconds in the fourth round to finish off Rodrigues and have one of the most amazing stories to tell in a fight that was just so unexpectedly finished. I couldn't believe it. So unfortunately for RoboCop, got too tired. When I saw his corner, I was like, Gilbert Burns, Vincent Luque. I was like, wow, he's bringing up his friends, some legends in the fight game. In his corner, Jared is cooked, but no, Jared was not cooked, and he still got it, guys. He's still got it, Jared Cannonier. Respect to you, brother, and I apologize that I thought you were going to lose. I apologize. I will think again next time. RoboCop had a corner like that, and he still didn't win the fight. It just wasn't his night. Honestly, it just wasn't his night. But at least he can go back to the gym and know what he needs to work on. I think he definitely needs to work on that cardio. So, as I said at the start of this podcast, I'm going to do, obviously, my predictions for this weekend's UFC Seattle pay-per-view fight night. Song Yudong versus Henry Cejudo Triple C. But first of all, I wanted to go over my thoughts on the double champ status, because I see a lot of people grouping every double champ into the same category. But for me, and for a lot of people, obviously, there are two very separate yet equally important categories for those both. And as obviously that has been announced this week, the double champ status is no longer possible with two belts at the same time, because the UFC no longer permits any fighter to be a champion in one division and then transfer over to another division straight away. So that's just not possible. That's not possible anymore. You have to vacate your title, as we said earlier on. So that will be the end of this amazing double champ status that's a possibility, that was a possibility for certain fighters in back in the day and up to recently, obviously. So obviously you have the double champs that had both belts at the same time. So for Henry Cejudo, for example, who's fighting this weekend, he had the flyweight belt and the bantamweight belt at the same time. Amanda Nunes also had 2 belts at the same time. Conor McGregor also had 2 belts at the same time. And the last champion that had 2 belts at the same time was Daniel Cormier in the lightweight and the heavyweight division, light heavyweight and heavyweight division. So for me, those people are levels above those who have also had belts in 2 categories, but not at the same time. And those people I'm talking about are obviously the current light heavyweight champion, Alex Pereira, who's been light heavyweight champion and middleweight. You've got obviously John Jones, the current UFC heavyweight champion, who has previously been light heavyweight champion also. And you've got the likes of BJ Penn, Randy Couture, and GSP. So there are 9 in total. 9 people who have had belts in 2 categories, but only 4 of them have had belts in 2 categories at the same time. Not taking anything away from the other guys, but there's just something special about seeing a fighter with 2 belts on their shoulders. I just find that amazing. So kudos to Henry Cejudo, who's fighting this weekend. I think he's really, even if he doesn't win this weekend, or if he does, kudos to him, because he's one of the very few that have managed to do it, and reigning over 2 divisions at the same time is not an easy stint, and frankly, I respect that a lot. But let's go into what my thoughts are on this weekend's fights. I'm very excited. As I said in the start of my video, I'm going to be able to put my fighting nerds glasses on because John Silva is fighting on Saturday. Let's go into these fights. So starting off, as I said, I only do the main card predictions. So if you wanted any undercard predictions, you can't get that from me. I'm sorry. So this is the UFC Seattle main card predictions. Starting off with Manyfield and Julius Walker. Julius Walker, who's got a clean record, whereas Manyfield obviously has not got a clean record. He's at 15-5-1, no contest. Julius Walker, he hasn't had any fights yet in the UFC. So maybe his clean record won't stay clean coming into the UFC, especially against a person like Manyfield, who can be a risk and can be dangerous at times. So my thoughts on this fight, I would say Manyfield might get a finish in the 2nd or 3rd round, or a decision. I'm going for Manyfield. I'm saying the 0 is going to be coming off of Walker's record tonight. The match I've been waiting for, Jean Silva versus Bagdasaryan. He's an Armenian fighter with a record of 8-3-0, no contest. I think he's a risk now for John Silva, but he's had a lot of fights cancelled in his career. But nevertheless, I'm going to go for John Silva by KO in the 2nd or the 1st. He's going to do damage, and he's planning on it. Next up, third fight on the main card, we have Rob Font versus Matsumoto, who has also got a clean record of 16-0. Honestly, I think that Matsumoto will keep his 0. I think Rob Font, great fighter, but there's a huge age gap. Matsumoto is very young, very speedy. I think he's very much a dynamic fighter, and I think he'll get the win in here, guys. So I'm going to go for Matsumoto. He's going to finish him, I think, in probably the 2nd or 3rd round. I'm going to go for a 2nd or 3rd round finish from Matsumoto. Next up, fan favorite Brendan Allen is taking on Anthony Hernandez. I'm really excited for this fight. I saw Brendan Allen fight in the flesh at UFC Paris last year in September. I really enjoyed his fight. He's good on the ground, but he likes to switch it up. And I think that even though in this fight, Anthony Hernandez is a betting favorite, I'm going to go for Brendan Allen because I think he's got a lot to prove since he lost his last fight. And he just had a baby. You've got another mouth to feed. So you want to get bonuses. You want to win fights. You want to get proposed new fights. So I think Brendan Allen, that might work in his advantage. Who knows? We don't know what's going on in his head. But for me, Brendan Allen has what it takes to beat Anthony Hernandez. And I think he might beat him by submission in the 2nd or 3rd as well. And last but not least, the main event of the evening, Henry Cejudo versus Song Yudong. Obviously, Song Yudong's a clear betting favorite here, and I'm going to go with Song Yudong personally. I don't think Henry Cejudo's got the speed anymore. Since obviously Song Yudong's much faster, probably the cardio's better. He's much younger. We saw in the ceremonial weigh-ins, Henry brought a fortune cookie for Song Yudong with written inside a message saying, Song Yudong, I'm beating you by, I don't know exactly the words, but I'm beating you by KO in the fourth. I'd love to see that. I think that could happen if he took him onto the ground, a bit of ground and pound. But I see him also trying for a submission, Henry. So that could be a possibility. But I think in reality, I'm seeing a third or fourth round finish for Song Yudong against Triple C. But I'd be just as delighted if Triple C got a win in there. So there you have it, folks. That was episode 2 of the MMA Girl podcast. I was Jessica. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Let me know your thoughts down below on what you thought of last week's fight night, Jared Cannonier, Robocop. I'd love to know what you think of my analysis of the matches, of the fights, and also what you thought of some of the fights. And also, what do you guys think for tonight's fights? Are we seeing Song Yudong getting that win in? Or are we seeing Triple C coming back into the win column? Let me know down below. If you want to support me, my links are down below. I've got all my socials linked, and subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. I'll see you next time.